For most of the time, I've shown you some of my favorite retro games by console, or reasons why I love them and you should too. But lately, I've begun to thinking, why do I still love these games? With all the modern games coming out, why do I always harken back to the days of my youth? I remember the time sitting in front of an old CRT with a Nintendo connected to it, grabbing a cartridge, putting it in, hitting that button, and immediately getting thrown into the role of the game. Is it the addictive gameplay? Is it the simplistic graphics? Or is there something more to it? Or maybe, just maybe, it was ingrained in me since before I was born. This is the origins of Retro Ball. Now I could go back to the day I was born, November 9th, 1976, and say at that time, there really wasn't any consoles, or well-known ones that I remember, back then, and all I had to play was baby toys. So let's fast forward to the 80s, the year of hairbands and neon colors, major historical moments, and some very well-known criminals. But for the sake of this video, the Atari 2600. Now, I was about 4 years old at the time this came out and really never had any interest in video games. But we did have one, and it was the biggest thing to have, the ability to play a video game inside the house at any time you wanted. This really was my first intro into gaming. Everyone had one of these, and at the time we really didn't care how bad Pac-Man was or how bad the E.T. game was. It was a game with the ability not to have to throw in so many quarters to try to see how far one could get in Pac-Man. All we had to do was turn on the TV, put the cartridge into the console, turn it on, and you were there. The memory of standing at the arcade machine playing the game. We're looking back at it now, it's not what we all thought it was. Fast forward to when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and now I get into my love of gaming, with the dawn of my own console, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now this was a massive step from the Atari 2600, and really got me into gaming with the first NES game I ever owned and played, Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. This is what drew me in, as a kid, to gaming even more, and soon I started a massive collection of games. I soon had my hands on games like Contra, Super Mario Bros. 3, and the first ever Final Fantasy game. However, it didn't stop there. Soon my parents then got me a subscription to Nintendo Power. This was the kid's insider info at all the new games coming up at the time for the NES, and not to mention cheats as well. And for me, it was the first time I heard about the Nintendo World Championship. The great contest to see who was the best at gaming back then. One could say that this was the precursor to gaming competitions at the time, and with Nintendo Power and the NES World Championship came Nintendo Power's own contest, and that was to enter in to win a gold cartridge with the 3 games for the championship on it. Now, I never actually entered them because I felt the chances of me winning were slim to none, so personally never owned one. Looking back now, I wish I did. However, that was not one to own. That was just a mere collectible worth nothing at all but bragging rights. Today, the one to own is the great cartridge, the Winter God, with the 3 games and the times of each game on it. Then the movie The Wizard came out, the old Fred Savage movie with a kid who was a massive game genius and entered into a massive competition. Well, this was the world's first introduction to the game Super Mario Bros. 3, and I wanted that game so bad. But I knew my parents would never get it for me, until they came home from the store and handed me the game. I was ecstatic. I had the one game I really wanted that year, and the grand story was how they went and got the game was just as interesting. Of course, being a kid back then, your parents could tell you an epic tale of how hard it was for them to find your favorite cereal at the store, and you would think it was epic. So the story was that the rush in the game was insane, and they had to step on a little old lady trying to get it for her grandson to get it for me. Now, till this day, it was one of the fondest memories I will always hold in my heart of my parents getting me something. I have many more of them over the years, and some of them I will talk about later. This was the game to have. Now, I played many games for the NES, but most of them I played before I owned them, which brings me to the rental years. So back in my early teens, there were places that would allow you to rent movies, and most of these times also allowed you to rent NES games. Renting back then was the early version of the try before you buy thing, and at this time my parents had a cabin up north, or at least I would call it up north. Whether or not was up to you, since At that time, anything that took me out of the city and into the woods or rural towns, I called up north. And there was a small little grocery store that had a hardware store attached to it. And there was a place I could rent NES games. So as my parents went to buy groceries for the weekend up north, I would go and find a few games to rent as well. And soon that store went out of business as a bigger store moved into town. But even then, it still had a rental section and I still rented games. Fast forward a few more years to 1994. And before the 1994, many consoles came out, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and so on. And I only played these when I'd hop on a bus with a friend to a rental place that for a small fee would allow you to play games on the consoles at the time. Or there was this place that basically was a pool and arcade hall for kids, since I never really owned these consoles at the time. But in 1994, I had turned 18, and at this time I had my old NES and I had my own PC in my room, which sparked my love of PC gaming, and I also had a job. And with that job, I went and got myself my very first PlayStation. And what game did I really want for this console? Well, Final Fantasy VII. Yes, I am a lover and still am a lover of RPG games. If you were to look at most of my game collection for the consoles I still have today, you would see that I have a nice collection of RPGs. So after I had gotten it, I played the crap out of it. The whole idea of playing a character and leveling it as you progress was just something I had and still love to this day. And it also brought me into the realm of strategy guides. This was the gamer's helper for me. You would go and buy these at the store, and you had everything you needed to know about the game and how to beat it. But actually you had a strategy to beat it, not the actual how to beat it. However, at this time I had the PlayStation, I also had a PC, and I loved and still love gaming as well. This is when I first fell in love with the first-person shooter genre. And the game that got me into it was the very first well-known FPS game, Wolfenstein 3D. I was in awe of the concept of the first-person view. You felt like you were in the game. You were BJ Blazkowicz shooting your way through a Nazi prison to reach the final boss of the game, all the while fighting attack dogs and soldiers while collecting food to heal and gems to add to your score while looking for hidden secrets. And then came Doom. This was the next level of first-person shooters, and the one that got most people into them. The music, the sound effects, and the difficulty made this game an instant hit, and I had to have it. And I did. However, it was the old free shareware version of the game that you could download for free from a BBS, until it was soon released in stores, and then it was given many sequels over the years, and I soon got my hands on all of them with Final Doom, which had all of the Doom games and some added level. Now, I wasn't one of those who modded the game to create my own levels and such, and then I went another step up from Doom to the final of the old school FPS games, and that was Duke Nukem 3D. This is also one of the best FPS games of all time. However, again, I only had free shareware version of the game, but it was the one that I could play over the years. During this, I was in college, and I was given a laptop to use while I was there, and my dad had a zip drive, and was able to put the game on there and then put it on my laptop so I could take it back to college with me, and me and my roommate laughed our asses off as we played the game since you could blow up toilets. It wasn't until my parents were visiting once again and I saw the expansion for Oblivion in a used game store and I fell in love with that. And then came Skyrim. I had to get that. So again, I saved up and got me a brand new copy of the game. I forgot to mention the Xbox 360 I had was the one that came with Halo 3. And I played the hell out of that game. And then I realized you could play online with other people. I did have the capability of that. It was cheaper to not have internet at the time. But you can still play against the bots. And that is what I did. And soon I did the same with the first Call of Duty games I had. Black Ops 1 and 2. I played the multiplayer bot versions of that. And then I had moved from Madison to a small town called Cambridge. While living in Cambridge for a few years, I still had my Xbox 360 and still kept on buying games. I mainly got used games because they were cheaper. At this time, I was in love with BioShock franchise and wanted BioShock Infinite, the third one. I did have the first two. I did have the internet connected to my Xbox 360 and had bought it via the Xbox store. Now I had all three games. I played the third one from start to finish in one night while I was on vacation from work. A few Christmases later, I got a brand new Xbox One that came with Halo 5 Guardian. However, in Cambridge, the internet was crap, and it took me 3 days to do the day one update to the console. But as soon as that was done, I had got Dragon Age Origins. This was to see if the system worked. And I think I still have that game. I knew I still have the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One till this day. However, I started to get into MMORPGs, or massive multiplayer online role-playing games. God, that's a long line to say. And the first one I got into was a game called Neverwinter. I love this game, but to be fair, I knew about the old PC prequel to the game called Neverwinter Nights, which I could play on both single player and online. However, on my birthday one year, my parents gave me two of my most favorite games of the Xbox One, Destiny 1 and 2. These games were just a blast to play, and I fell in love with them. The concept of playing a first-person game that never ends is awesome. Even after I beat the story of Destiny 2, the game still went on. It reminds me of playing Skyrim as well, and my first introduction to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. I love these games, even though I was lucky to get the Games of the Year edition for Fallout 3, which made the game open world since the original game supposedly wasn't. And then I got Fallout 4 for the Xbox One, and played that from start to finish, and then started to mod the crap out of the game to the point that it was just ridiculous. After college, I still had the PlayStation and the PC, and I soon moved out of my parents' house for a bit. And still had the job where I played PlayStation 2, and here's a tiny little kitten blocking my fucking script. It wasn't until my parents came down to Madison and visited me again when I saw the expansion for Oblivion. I fell in love with that. And then came Skyrim. I had to get that, so I saved up and got a brand new copy, and here's another kitten blooper for you, goofy thing. It wasn't until my parents were visiting again, and I saw the expansion for Oblivion and fell in love with that. And then came Skyrim. I had to get this game, so I saved up and bought a brand new copy of a kitten sitting on my tablet where my script is as I'm recording this on my phone. Luna, you are cute and lovable, and now she's wanting to record. Enjoy this kitten blooper. Well, I reconnected with an old friend from my childhood and started dating her, and moved from Cambridge, Wisconsin to Racine, Wisconsin, and I am still there now. I then found my new retro game heaven in a small little store called New Wave Video, where at one part of the store you can find retro games and consoles to buy, as well as newer games he has as well, and soon bought back my love of retro gaming when one year, when I got my taxes, I had found there for $800 a wood green hydro-coated NES, and I got it. I still have the wood green NES till this day. And when the pandemic hit, I had been out of work for a while by this time, but had some money saved up and heard that the Final Fantasy VII Remake was to come out, but sadly it was for the PS4. Well, I had said I was going to get that and the game as well. Funny, I got the console for just one game and played a bit of it, but never played it again. But I soon found out that they had also made remakes of the older Final Fantasy games as well, so I had gotten them. And then I played two of my favorite PS4 games, Uncharted 4 and Persona 5. These two games, and you can ask my fiancée Jill, I played from start to finish. I love these games and would replay them. They have awesome stories and great gameplay, and Persona 5 was just awesome to play with the music and songs in the game as well. I still have that and collected some games for that as well. YouTube was a part of my life for a few years, but when I started the channel, I had no intention of actually posting anything to it. It was just a way to subscribe to some of my favorite YouTube channels, some of which inspired me to become the YouTuber that you see now. The very first videos posted to the channel were just tests to see if I could do it. One was the music machines in the House of the Rock in Spring Green, Wisconsin, and the other one was an attempt at a cooking video where I made a salad. So this is just the start of how I became Retro Paul. In part 2, we will look at what I call the birth of the channel. Until then, mash that like button, bang on the bell, and smash that subscribe button so you get notified when part 2 comes out. I am Retro Paul saying peace out and stay frosty.